Did Steve Witkoff sabotage Iran's nuclear talks and pushed aggressively for military attack on Tehran to derail diplomatic progress? Trump's envoy reportedly twisted Tehran's position on negotiations, fabricating threats to manufacture justification for preemptive strikes. Witkoff allegedly claimed Iran boasted about expanding its uranium stockpiles, exaggerating capabilities to stoke international alarm. Diplomats expose U.S. fabrications about Iran's nuclear program amid accusations of war crimes committed during strikes on Tehran. A report citing regional diplomats has claimed that Trump's envoy undermined nuclear talks with Tehran, misrepresenting discussions to justify escalation against Iran. Steve Witkoff stands accused of presenting a distorted account of Iran's positions in negotiations prior to the war's escalation, according to MS Now reports. Witkoff allegedly offered a skewed portrayal of Iran's stance to bolster the case for military strikes, diverging from the actual diplomatic exchanges. In an interview, Witkoff asserted that Iran boasted of possessing 460 kilograms of uranium enriched to 60%, framing it as provocative. He further claimed Iranian officials expressed pride in evading international protocols while leveraging the stockpile as negotiation leverage. However, a diplomat reportedly dismissed Witkoff's characterization as categorically inaccurate, clarifying Iran's willingness for constructive engagement. Iranian negotiators had indicated readiness to relinquish enriched uranium stockpile in return for comprehensive sanctions relief, per the report. Iran also reportedly escalated enrichment levels only after Trump's administration withdrew from the 2015 nuclear deal, responding to breached commitments. A second source informed MS Now that Iran declined to negotiate solely over ballistic missiles and proxy groups in isolation from wider issues. Tehran instead proposed addressing those concerns within broader regional security forums, seeking balanced and inclusive resolutions. This dispute over the true content of negotiations arises following U.S. and Israeli attacks on Iran, casting doubt on strike justifications. Witkoff's alleged misrepresentation coincides with growing outrage in Iran over U.S.-Israeli strikes labeled as potential war crimes by local voices. On March 3, Iranian media reported a parked Iran airjet destroyed at Bushehr airport, highlighting civilian infrastructure vulnerabilities. Press TV shared images of wreckage scattered across a charred tarmac amid visible smoke and debris from the targeted civilian aircraft. This airport incident followed a deadly strike on Shajara Tayyibeh Girls' School in Minab on February 28, which tragically killed 150 young lives. On February 28, a coordinated U.S. and Israeli airstrike attacked and destroyed Shajara Tayyibeh Girls' School in Iran, sending shockwaves across the nation. On March 1, UNESCO condemned the school bombing as a grave violation of international humanitarian law, urging accountability. On March 3, Iran held a mass funeral in Minab for 165 schoolgirls and staff lost in the strike, with crowds mourning the innocent victims. Participants chanted against U.S. and Israeli actions as long rows of small coffins were solemnly carried through the grieving streets. On March 2, Iran's foreign minister strongly criticized the U.S.-Israeli school strike, demanding justice for the profound human cost. Abbas Araghchi said, and I quote, "These are graves being dug for more than 160 innocent young girls who were killed in the U.S.-Israeli bombing of a primary school. Their bodies were torn to shreds. This is how rescue promised by Mr. Trump looks in reality. From Gaza to Minab, innocents murdered in cold blood." Unquote. Meanwhile, Trump and Rubio offered conflicting statements on the rationale behind the U.S. attacks on resilient Iran. Earlier, Rubio stated the U.S. struck preemptively after learning Israel planned its own operation against Iranian targets. Trump, however, maintained the U.S. attacked because he assessed Tehran was preparing an imminent assault on American interests.
To the Pentagon and the Department of War to discuss the tactics behind that and the progress that's being made. That is the clear objective of this mission. The second question that's been asked is, why now? Well, there's two reasons why now. The first is it was abundantly clear that if Iran came under attack by anyone, the United States or Israel or anyone, they were going to respond and respond against the United States. The orders had been delegated down to the field commanders. It was automatic, and in fact it bared to be true, because in fact within an hour of the initial attack on the leadership compound, the missile forces in the south and in the north, for that matter, had already been activated to launch. In fact, those had already been pre-positioned. The third is the assessment that was made that if we stood and waited for that attack to come first before we hit them, we would suffer much higher casualties. And so the president made the very wise decision. We knew that there was going to be an Israeli action. We knew that that would precipitate an attack against American forces. And we knew that if we didn't preemptively go after them before they launched those attacks, we would suffer higher casualties and perhaps even higher those killed. And then we would all be here answering questions about why we knew that and didn't act. Going back to the purpose. The purpose of this is to destroy that missile capability. Why does Iran want that ballistic missile capability? What they are trying to do and have been trying to do for a very long time is build a conventional weapons capability as a shield where they can hide behind. Meaning, there would come a point where they have so many conventional missiles, so many drones, and it can inflict so much damage that no one can do anything about their nuclear program. That is what they were trying to do, is put themselves in a place of immunity where the damage they could inflict on the region would be so high that no one can do anything about their nuclear program or their nuclear ambitions. They are producing, by some estimates, over 100 of these missiles a month. Compare that to the 6 or 7 interceptors that can be built a month. They can build 100 of these a month, not to mention the thousands of one-way attack drones that they also have. They've been doing this for a very long time, and by the way, they've been doing it under sanction. You see the attacks they're conducting right now? They're attacking airports, they're attacking hotels, they're hitting not just military bases, they're attacking our embassies directly, they're attacking facilities that have nothing to do with war or with military, and that's a weakened Iran. That's in Iran despite years of sanction. Imagine a year from now, or a year and a half from now, the capabilities they would have to inflict damage on us. It's an unacceptable risk, especially in the hands of a regime that's run by radical clerics.
So before we begin this important ceremony, and there's no ceremony that can be much more important than this, let me provide a brief update on Operation Epic Fury. Today, the United States military continues to carry out large-scale combat operations in Iran to eliminate the grave threats posed to America by this terrible terrorist regime. Following our obliteration of Iran's nuclear program in Operation Midnight Hammer a short while ago, we warned Iran not to make any attempt to rebuild at a different location because they were unable to use the ones that we so powerfully blew up. But they ignored those warnings and refused to cease their pursuit of nuclear weapons. In addition, the regime's conventional ballistic missile program was growing rapidly and dramatically, and this posed a very clear, colossal threat to America and our forces stationed overseas. The regime already had missiles capable of hitting Europe and our bases, both local and overseas, and would soon have had missiles capable of reaching our beautiful America. The purpose of this fast-growing missile program was to shield their nuclear weapon development and make it extraordinarily difficult for anyone to stop them from making these highly forbidden by us nuclear weapons. We were the ones that were complaining. We were the ones that wanted it stopped. But everybody was behind us. They just didn't have the courage to say so. An Iranian regime armed with long-range missiles and nuclear weapons would be an intolerable threat to the Middle East, but also to the American people. Our country itself would be under threat, and it was very nearly under threat. I was very proud to have knocked out the Iran nuclear deal by President Barack Hussein Obama. That was a horrible, horrible, dangerous document. They would have had nuclear weapons 3 years ago, and they would have used them. But I'll not let that happen. For almost 47 years, this regime has been attacking the United States and killing Americans. Every time you see someone with missing arms and legs or a face that's been absolutely shattered violently, it was almost certainly caused by an Iran roadside bomb. They were put there by General Soleimani, who was the father of the roadside bomb. Very proudly, he thought, but I terminated him in my first term. This was our last best chance to strike what we're doing right now and eliminate the intolerable threats posed by this sick and sinister regime. And they are indeed sick and sinister. Our objectives are clear. First, we're destroying Iran's missile capabilities, and you see that happening on an hourly basis, and their capacity to produce brand new ones, and pretty good ones they make. Second, we're annihilating their navy. We've knocked out already 10 ships. They're at the bottom of the sea. Third, we're ensuring that the world's #1 sponsor of terror can never obtain a nuclear weapon, never going to have a nuclear weapon. I said that from the beginning. They're never going to have a nuclear weapon. They were on the road to getting one legitimately through a deal that was signed foolishly by our country. And finally, we're ensuring that the Iranian regime cannot continue to arm, fund, and direct terrorist armies outside of their borders. And we thought we had a deal, but then they backed out, and they came back, and we thought we had a deal, and they backed out. I said, you can't deal with these people. You got to do it the right way. Today, we grieve for the 4 heroic American service members who have been killed in action, and send our love and support to their families. In their memory, we continue this mission with ferocious, unyielding resolve to crush the threat this terrorist regime poses to the American people, and a threat indeed it is. We have the strongest and most powerful, by far, military in the world, and we will easily prevail. We're already substantially ahead of our time projections, but whatever the time is, it's okay. Whatever it takes, we will always, and we have right from the beginning, we projected 4 to 5 weeks, but we have capability to go far longer than that. We'll do it. Whatever somebody said today, they said, oh, well, if the president wants to do it really quickly, after that he'll get bored. I don't get bored. There's nothing boring about this. Do you agree with that, Pete? I don't think there's anything, Mr. General. I think there's nothing boring about it. Somebody actually said from the media, I think he'll get bored after about a week or two. No, we don't get bored. I never get bored. If I got bored, I wouldn't be standing here right now, I guarantee you that, to go through what I had to go through. We also projected 4 weeks to terminate the military leadership, and as you know, that was done in about an hour, so we're ahead of schedule there by a lot.